All entrepreneurs need to give themselves permission to be contrarian. But talk about that moment when you first had this idea, crazy idea, and then gave yourself that permission.
Well, that was so long ago, but it was a wonderful time. I had no money in the bank. My car was repossessed out of the driveway, and life was not so good. And I was going through a divorce. It was not a pleasant time. But being contrarian was, I think, how I was always brought up. And at that particular time, I said to myself, I can do something different. I can be in a man's world. I can be in a non-traditional business. And I called up somebody who was in that business, and I said, teach me everything you know in 24 hours. He started laughing. He said, are you kidding? There's no women in this business. And I said, you remember me. I really need to know about your business. And I showed up at his plant the next day with a pair of high-heeled shoes, very high, and a sundress. Now, that is not the appropriate uniform for scrap metal. But here I am. I'm young, and I said, well, show me what you do. And he's showing me all these metals and things. I had no idea what they were. And I said, well, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to see if I can collect some of this metal. And so then I bought a jumpsuit, I bought steel-toed shoes, and a pink hard hat. And the name of my company was on one side, and my name was on the other. I looked like I was pumping gas. So, anyway, I said, if men can do it, he could do it, I could do it. There was nothing to stop me at that time. I needed to take care of my family. I just needed a break. I needed to keep my home, and that was the only way I saw was picking up materials in the alley. So that was the first time.
Now, you already mentioned doing something kind of unconventional and going with the inappropriate clothing, but I've also come to realize that women entrepreneurs in particular resort to the dark arts of entrepreneurship. Sarah Blakely was always undressing people in front of people to get her products known. Estee Lauder was a known stalker. Stalking is an underrated startup strategy. So did you resort, did you resort to any of these dark arts?
Well, Linda, I love that in your book. I read that, and I was so impressed. I thought, well, if they could do it, of course, I've done some things that are a little bit
So let's hear. Entrepreneur.
I don't think anybody knows this story. And I was telling it yesterday as I looked at acquiring another business. I said to them, do you remember a place called Hamilton Metals? And I said they had gone out of business, and they had all this inventory they were selling. Now, I was very young at this business, maybe in the business a year or two. I had some money. I had reinvested back in the business, but I wasn't wealthy. But they had a huge amount of inventory I needed to buy. And the buyer that was there, everybody was gone, and they were just selling off because the company was bankrupt. And the guy looked at me, and he looked at me, and I was a nice-looking girl at that time, much younger. And he said, I'd like to go out with you. And I said, well, I really want your inventory. and I said, but I'm married. I told him I lied. I said, I'm married. And I said, my husband really wouldn't approve. And then I started thinking, but you know what? I have a girlfriend. And so I didn't know how you get girlfriends. And I called up a friend of mine, and I said, I have to find somebody. This guy wants me to go out. So he said, well, I have somebody. It's about $100 an hour. And I said, well, give me your number. So I called. I made the arrangement.
Fabulous.
I said, I have my girlfriend. She would be happy to go out with you. Here's her phone number. Well, he called me. Now I'm buying the inventory. I'm doing fine with the inventory. But now she's getting expensive because he keeps calling her. He's falling in love.
And you're paying.
And I'm paying. So
awesome.
Finally, I called her up. I said, I can't afford you anymore. I said, tell him that you went back with your old boyfriend or something.
That is fabulous.
But anyway, so that was one of I've never told
Chicago
that story.
Ideas Week, people. So
do what you gotta do.
So we've talked about entrepreneurship as this tension between taking risk and reducing risk. You've outlasted many of your competitors but how did you know which risks to take? Which were the smart risks? How did you balance that?
Well, I don't know that I was so smart, but calculated risks are you know, a lot of MBA students, people that think that they know everything about business do, but I just had no money. So guess what my risk was? I had to turn inventory all the time, so I had cash. And by doing that, I had no market risk, because our business is commodities, and commodities can go up and they can go down. You know, we work off the COMEX and the LME, and today it can be $3, and tomorrow it can be like in the crash of what's going on today in the stock market.
Right.
So our markets have dropped dramatically. So I'm always selling. And my competitors were saving. They're saying, no, I won't do that until copper goes to $1. Then I'll sell everything. And they wait 5 or 10 years, and usually they're gone. So my trick was always selling into the market. As long as you had a profit, you know, it doesn't have to be a huge profit, but as long as it's a profit, it works. So that's how I was. I am risk adverse in some things, but certainly I don't bet the farm, as you talked about it.
Yes, you minimize risk.
Yes.
So let's talk about your go big moment, because you started this in your home. And you know, I found a number of entrepreneurs, like I mentioned, Betty Graham, the founder of Liquid Paper, who's just a terrible typist. So she created this liquid paper, and people started buying it, and then she gets fired because she uses her letterhead. And at some point, she has to decide, like many entrepreneurs, you know, do I go big, or is this a lifestyle business? For you, when did you move out of your home, and how did you know it was the time to actually hire employees to go big?
Well, I had my business in my home. My garage was filled with barrels. And the truck was in a gas station, the first truck. Now, as I started to develop the business, I got more trucks. I even bought 36 Datsuns, believe it or not. Somebody was coming off of a lease, and I was able to put a deal together. I didn't care what I bought. I bought a fire engine. I bought Datsuns. I mean, I didn't care, but I had no room to park anything. I mean, my house, you know, my neighbors weren't thrilled about when the truck came around to pick up the barrels. But I lived in a very nice neighborhood in Chicago on the North Shore. And
local girl.
Yeah, so, but the truck was not like Smokey and the Bandit. My son thought, when we first got our first truck, he thought it was going to be like Smokey and the Bandit with a big whisk, you know, with that noise. And instead it had a big tire across the front of it, and the sides were like this. It was like you see on the expressways with people filled with odd items that they collect in the alley. So, anyway.
So your son works with you, and how do you navigate that? How do you navigate having a family member as part of your business? That's often tricky.
That's not easy. Family businesses. Well, I only limited it to one person. One family member. So that has.
So there's someone to have dinner with.
Yes. No, he doesn't want to have dinner with me.
No, I meant the other one.
Oh. I have 2 children, so the other one I can have dinner with.
Exactly.
You're exactly right. But it's not easy, because I think that well, first of all, my son graduated college, and he said to everybody, have a nice life in my business. My children always have worked in the business, just helping. But he didn't think he'd ever do that. He thought he was going to go to law school and finish and be a lawyer. And as most people who do finish law school, they don't necessarily become lawyers. He just loved the business, so he's there. He's done a great job in bringing on talent. We have grown the company dramatically under his presidency. So it's been very rewarding. But there were a lot of years that we threw things at each other. So it's not easy having family. But I really don't like, when I see big families in businesses, I think it's very difficult. And I think a lot of families have problems.
So limit it to one.
Yes, and especially a son working for his mother. Just imagine, gentlemen, how you would feel working for your mother. I mean, I do feel sorry for my son some days.
So you spend a lot of time talking about the importance of failing, and also you have this wonderful approach to your employees. One thing that I get asked a lot is people want to take risks inside companies, but they fear what happens if they fail. They're going to lose their budget or their job. And some people, Ratan Tata in India actually has a prize for the best failed idea to encourage failure. How do you instill this ability to take risks to make change inside your company?
I think we're really good at this. First of all, I have on my desk a sign that says fail fast. And fail fast means just get over it. I mean, in so many instances, people just dwell on their failures and who cares? Get on with the next thing. And so I try to encourage any young people. We have a team of very young people in our company. And we give them, actually, we train them. They do not come from our industry. They don't have fathers, mothers, or family in our industry, but we train them. And they are so successful because they teach us, they have great ideas, and they are willing to have what I call virgin eyes on business. They tell us things that we've never seen before. And so we give them even locations, new locations, so they can run their own business and fail. And I tell them, don't feel bad if I tell you something, and so they really learn that I'm not here to criticize them, I'm there to encourage them.
And the other thing about traditional companies, you've done such a good job hiring millennials, as you said, and they want this sense of meaning and purpose, and people are saying, but I'm in a traditional industry, how do I do that? So how have you managed successfully to give them that?
Oh, I think we have some even in the audience. I mean, we give them great opportunities in their 20s where they can go places. I mean, I don't know very many companies that do that. You have to sort of be at a company for a long time. We like to move, if they're really committed and they're passionate about what we do, then for me, we give them whatever, we give them opportunities. I think the restaurant business does that very well, and I've really taken that from Rich Melman. Anybody who knows Let Us Entertain You, they do that. He buys restaurants and he starts them and he gives them to the next young guy, and they get a piece of the action. So it's kind of what we're doing, and we feel that that there's incentives, and we just do a lot of good things, and we learn so much from the young people. There aren't, the old ideas aren't around anymore. Most of my competitors are gone. So so let's spice it up a little bit, have some fun.
Great. And I talked earlier about my own evolution as a leader and how it changed. And what has been your experience as a woman leader, and has that changed over time?
Well, I don't know. I think I'm the same as when I started. I'm kind of, I think you have to be humble. You have to be open. You cannot, my leadership, I didn't know how to be a leader. I never was educated to be a leader. So I had to learn as you go, and the results were always good, so why not do more of it? And I think if you expect superior results, you get them. So it's my expectation that everybody's going to do very well. And once in a while, we're not so right, but as long as 51% of the time we're right, we're good.
And you seem still so passionate, enthusiastic. How do you maintain that passion over time for the idea?
Oh, I don't know. I get up in the morning and I want to go to work. I think that, whether it's Sunday or, Sunday is a hard day, but I usually use that to decompress a little bit. But I can't wait to get in the office on Monday and start again. And there's always something new and exciting. I don't care what business it is. I don't care what you're starting. I don't care what you're doing. But you've got to feel that way, or you're not going to be successful. Because really, it's about the energy that you give to other people. And if you give it to them, they give it right back. And they want to be successful. We have so many employees. I mean, we're just growing with leaps and bounds as we speak. And I mean, we look at different companies, and it's not the same energy.
So what would you say to people out here who have a dream, but they're feeling stuck? What advice would you give them?
Well, like Nike, just do it. Don't hesitate. I think that people that want, too many business plans, you got to have, money, yes, but not a lot. You can do it. I mean, you can figure out a way. There are friends and family and people that believe in you. I just think that everybody gets stopped for the wrong reasons. That there's so many different things that you can invent and do and recreate. I think that Mr. Keywell was probably the best at that. And when he talked about how being a youngster, you just, you keep reinventing yourself.
So any last words you'd like to share with people?
I don't know. It's being in our business being in any business is always a challenge. And I think that if you put blinders on and you forget that just don't care about anybody watching you and just keep going. And don't let anybody stand in your way. So often, people will say to you, you can't do it, you don't have enough money. I mean, I remember those words myself. The more they did it, the faster I got higher. And I became more successful. So I think it's just about not listening to some of the naysayers and just being able to get your word out and do your business. You'll be great.
Well, thank you. It's been inspiring to meet you, and I know we've all changed our opinion of scrap metal thanks to you. We'll never look at it the same.